Hey guys, welcome back to Rebel Media. I've really been enjoying reading your comments on the Bloody Bill video. I think that's awesome. I'm seeing a lot of comments like this one, or this one. I'm just thinking that maybe we should take a look at the other side and take a look at what these JAYHAWKERs were doing. And so I was going to do a whole bunch of them all in one video, but I think I'm going to break it up for purposes of time. And this one we're going to be talking about a dude named Charles Jennison. Take a look. Let me know what you guys think. Cool outfit, bro. We're first going to start out with this guy, Charles R. Jennison. He was born June 6, 1834 in New York, a full-blown Yankee. His claim to fame is being the colonel of Jennison's JAYHAWKERs and for being in the 15th Kansas Volunteer Cavalry, in which he fought in Princess Raid, and he also served in the Kansas House of Representatives from 1865 to 1869. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. Him and his family moved to Kansas in 1857 to the same town where John Brown lived, whose radical policies Jennison would soon emulate. He mostly acted as a vigilante, including harassing court judges and locals who he considered to be biased against pro-slavery rulings in 1857. Jennison starts doing raids across the Missouri border, and he teams up with another famous JAYHAWKER named James Montgomery. Although Jennison didn't feel he was radical enough during the raids, and he bails on him to lead his own. In addition to taking anything of value and committing violence against the people of Missouri, Jennison's men would often destroy what they couldn't take. This is also when they became known as Jennison's JAYHAWKERs. In the fall of 1860, Jennison led his men on a raid against some of the settlers living near Trading Post, Kansas. There were these pro-slavery dudes named the Dark Lantern Order, and they caught runaway slaves for money. Jennison and his men caught up with most of them and took them prisoner. He held his own trial where he was judge, jury, and executioner, and one of the men, Russell Hinds, was lynched on November 12, 1860. All the prisoners were released on the condition that they immediately leave the Kansas Territory. A few days later, Jennison and his men capture a man named Samuel Scott, who they also tried and convicted and executed. Next was a man, Lester D. Moore. He resisted their attack and they just shot him dead. To put a stop to his vigilante behavior, the Kansas territorial government offered a reward for Jennison's arrest. Even though he was a fugitive from justice, that didn't stop the Kansas governor from giving him a colonel's position of the 15th Kansas Volunteer Cavalry Regiment. In 1861, he continues raids into Missouri because he hates the people of Missouri and begins not to discriminate between secessionists and loyal Unionists. Everyone and their property is fair game. During this time, he strengthens his bond with Senator James Lane, yet another famous JAYHAWKER we will discuss later. Jennison takes some of his cavalry to Independence, Missouri, where he arrests every man in town and takes all their property. Then he heads to Kansas City to commit more terror against the people, with the backing of the feds. Any folks not loyal to the Union would be required to sign a deed of forfeiture, turning over all their possessions to the U.S. federal government. Anyone who did not sign the deed would be considered a traitor and shot dead. He continues to murder and rob civilians until it gets so out of control that Major General David Hunter issues Order Number 17. And Major General Henry Halleck, sick of the bullshit, orders Jennison and his men to go fight the Apache in Mexico. This enrages Jennison.
Oh, man!
He submits his resignation on April 10, 1862, and he gives a speech to all his men trashing his commanders, saying that they and the administration of Lincoln were all pro-slavery men and they should desert the army and go rogue with him. This lands him in jail. There is no trial, and he is released shortly after Quantrell's raid on Lawrence. And wouldn't you know it, the Kansas governor again makes him a colonel. And him and George Hoyt gather up 1,000 men, and they were back at it again. In 1864, Him and his men fight against Confederate Major General Sterling Price, who was busy working on invading Missouri. This keeps him busy for a little bit, but afterwards, Jennison goes right back to his jayhawking ways. On June 23, 1865, Colonel Charles R. Jennison was dishonorably discharged from the service. And here's the statement from Missouri at war's end. Colonel Jennison was subsequently tried before a court-martial at Fort Leavenworth, Kansas, on the charges of conduct of the prejudice of good order and military discipline, gross and willful neglect of duty, defrauding the government of the United States, and the disobedience of orders. He was found guilty and sentenced to dishonorably be dismissed from the United States military. And you think that would be the end of him, right? Nope. He actually ends up in a position of power. He actually starts being a public servant and working for the government during Reconstruction and after. Kind of twisted that a thieving, plundering murderer, just like Bloody Bill and Quantrell and all the other guys, ends up being in a position of power after the war, after being kicked out of the army too. History is very complicated, and it's important to look at all sides, I think, guys. So I appreciate you watching today. I'm excited to bring you more content. I'm going to try to have a video every week, but I thank you so much, guys. I really appreciate you all. God bless.